guys! Today we'll be recapping the manhwa, I'll Be the Warrior's Mother. Please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, as it really helps our channel. Thanks. Our story starts with a beautiful young woman walking alone through dark hallways, a lantern in one hand. She ends up beside the bed of a young man who has unique markings on one side of his face. The girl wears a determined expression. It kind of seems like she's here to hurt him. But suddenly, she throws the blanket off of the sleeping man and climbs on top of him? Oh, that is not where I thought this was going. The girl, whose name is Elena, has attempted to do this many times before and always failed. Unfortunately for her, it looks like tonight is no different. The young man beneath her rips at the bed sheets, wrapping her up in a little cocoon and placing her neatly beside him. Despite the fact that she basically forced herself on him, the man is very gentle with her and holds her close as he falls back asleep. He stays close by and asks Elena if she's going to sleep here like this. Although she didn't achieve her mission goal, Elena doesn't mind a little cuddle. And since this man is actually her husband, it can't hurt. She snuggles up to him, taking a good look at his chest and asking if he can take off his shirt. The man refuses, admitting that he thinks she's shameless enough to try something in his sleep. Damn, she must be really eager. Eventually, he falls asleep. Elena wakes him up again, asking how he isn't uncomfortable sleeping in his clothes, which is her final-ditch effort before she falls asleep herself. Is anyone else confused? Well, don't worry, because it's time for some context. Elena is the third child of Count Sorte, a wealthy businessman whose family had everything they could ever wish. Elena's elder brother and sister are in constant competition to become the heir of the family, which means she can step back and live comfortably with her family's support. One day, Elena was stopped in town by a starving beggar. Reluctantly, she ordered her maidservant to bring some bread and hot soup and gifted both to the beggar. A pretty basic thing to do if you have more money than you know what to do with. But that night, Elena's sleep was interrupted when a maid woke her up, dragging her out of bed to flee the monstrous creatures descending on the capital from the skies. Her brother, sister, and father were all dead, which came as a shock to Elena, who had seen them all alive and well just the day before. But when she asked her maid, she told her the Count had passed away more than 10 years ago from an illness. What the heck is going on? Her siblings too had died over 5 years ago in a carriage accident. This all sounded crazy to Elena, who began to grow suspicious of the maid. She remembers the face of every one of her servants, and this one was unfamiliar. She also didn't remember how she ended up in the capital, or which part of the city they were in. While running through the ruined streets, a woman came out of her home, begging to be saved. Before they even stopped, the woman was killed by one of those dragon-like creatures that had taken over the city. The maid grabbed Elena's hand and forced her to keep moving. She explained that the beasts are magical creatures known as Elgar. They're vicious predators, but have terrible eyesight. The next thing Elena knew, she was on the ground and her maid had been stabbed by an Elgar. The last thing she told her mistress was to stay silent and head west to find a pub called Forest of the Sun. There, she would find help. And with that, the maid died. Well, this all escalated very quickly. Wasn't she just trying to get frisky with her husband a moment ago? Literally running for her life, Elena had no choice but to continue west as she was told, following signs to the Forest of the Sun. Finally, she arrived at the pub, banging on the door for help. She told them her name and they opened the door, calling her Madame Malisto for some reason. Once inside, the stewards were very kind, offering her warm water with honey and a blanket. The lady introduced herself as Anna and her husband as Hans. They were surprised that she had never seen the magic beast before. They assumed she had been hiding out for the past year, as the Elgar had been wreaking havoc this whole time. At this point, Elena knew something was really, truly wrong. She asked for a mirror, and after seeing her aged reflection, smashed it on the ground. The year was 887, meaning that she had somehow woken up 20 years in the future. Before she could process any of this madness, the beasts found the pub, forcing them to flee through a secret passage in the basement. Anna and Hans wouldn't come with her, preferring to die together if that was what awaited them. They shut the door on her, which seems kind of cruel, actually. Poor Elena was so panicked that she just curled up in a corner with her ears covered, praying for it all to end soon. And honestly, who can blame her? If I woke up 20 years in the future when the whole world was ending, I think I would have had a stroke. Elena's life hasn't always been easy. Despite being rich and never having to worry about money or bills like the rest of us, she lost her mother at a very early age. Her father wasn't a very affectionate man, but ever since they lost her, he placed a bouquet of flowers at her grave and stayed to talk with her on the anniversary of her death. For that reason, and that reason alone, Elena always loved her father fiercely. Her siblings were also kind to her when they weren't so busy fighting with each other. They always checked on her and bought her gifts when they could. So the idea that all of them were suddenly dead was too much for Elena to bear. After crying her eyes out, she fell asleep in the secret passage. When she woke up, her body was aching, but she couldn't hear anything from above. So she climbed the ladder and opened the hatch. The pub was a wreck. Hans and Anna's final wish had come true, and they had died in each other's arms. Elena was once again alone and scared out of her mind. When she heard a sound, she began to laugh, not caring if the monstrous Elgar slowly creeping closer could hear her. She stood to meet her final moments and was brutally speared through the stomach. That was the last thing she remembers before waking up in her own bed with her usual maid, Mary. So, was it all a dream? Mary assures her it was just a nightmare, but obviously, something that scarring doesn't go away so easily. She asks Mary to stay a little while longer, finding comfort in the maid who has been with her since she was very little. When the sun rises in the morning, Elena is convinced it wasn't just a simple nightmare. Somehow, she just knows. She really did see the future. Though why it was shown to her of all people is a mystery. Yesterday had been a normal day, apart from the interaction with the beggar. When she remembers the old lady who had begged for food, Elena asks her maid to find the culprit and bring her to the mansion. They did find the lady, but she refused to move even one step. So, Elena goes to her instead. Her carriage rolls up in front of a suspicious-looking tent, where the old woman is waiting for her, clearly expecting a visit. There is something strange about the woman's appearance. Once she has a chance to look closely, Elena realizes she has changed. Yesterday when they met, the woman had no ears. Now they are alone, she looks perfectly normal. Elena doesn't waste any time with useless questions about her appearance. Knowing the vision was because of her, she asks the lady why she was shown the future. The woman explains that everything she saw will come to pass. The Empire will be preyed upon by the Elgar and eventually destroyed, and after that, the whole world will come to an end. Elena knows there must be a way to change this fate. Otherwise, why would she have been given a glimpse of the horrors to come? The old lady confirms her suspicions, but their only shot at salvation lies with Duke Kai Mayhad, a man more commonly referred to as the Duke of the Monster. Not exactly a warm and friendly guy by the sound of things. According to the old lady, the son of the Duke will one day become a hero. He will be a warrior capable of awakening the power of a sword passed down in legend, a sword that could kill the Demon King. Currently, the child is not destined to be born. The only way to ensure the hero is born is to sacrifice a soul. It all sounds very dark and creepy, but the old lady doesn't explain any more before vanishing into the ether. Well, that's helpful. When Elena emerges from the tent, she's clearly shaken. She can't even remember getting up and walking out of the tent. The old lady must have been playing tricks on her again. Upon her return home, Elena searches the library, hoping to shed some light on the incredibly vague warnings the prophet gave her. But there's only one book relevant, one that mentions evil creatures that are neither human nor monster and come from the demon realm. Yep, that sounds like the Elgar, all right. The king of the creatures is called the Demon King, the one the hero could one day stab through the heart, if only she can figure out how to make sure he's born. In other words, in order to stop the world from ending, they have to kill the Demon King. Elena's first thought is that she can just do the damn thing herself, but she doesn't know how to get to the demon realm, and even if she did, there's no guarantee it could even be killed by someone other than the hero. Exhausted and frustrated, Elena switched tactics. She summoned Albert, the butler, inquiring into the Duke Mayhad to see if he had already had a wife. Apparently, he was in negotiations with the Linden family, in particular, a Lady Mael, who is actually Elena's cousin. This could get messy. Elena stormed right into Mael's house and immediately asked if she was negotiating marriage with the Duke. Probably not the most subtle way to approach the problem, but whatever works, I guess. It turns out Mael isn't happy about the marriage. Her father is effectively selling her off, since the Duke is incredibly rich and will pay well for her dowry. Elena is sympathetic for her cousin, but she's also pleased, since a marriage means they will also have kids too, right? Well, actually wrong. Although the Duke is young and rich, he's infamous for carrying the ancient curse of the devil, a mark he wears on his face that makes everyone see him as a monster. So it's not a surprise that Mael says she would rather die than have his children. Oh dear, looks like it's back to square one for Elena. No one really knows why the Duke was cursed with the markings, but he's had them since he was born. His parents tried everything to get rid of it, but nothing ever changed. The nobility began to suspect it was proof of a curse by some demon. It was only a rumor at the time, but then someone found an old book with a pattern of the devil that looked close enough to the Duke's. After that, no one would hear any different. Duke Mayhad was cursed without a doubt. Mael asks Elena if she would dare start a family with a man like that, but she doesn't see the problem. Mael yells back that it's not the curse that concerns her, just his ugly face. Ouch! Little harsh there, Mael. She is also worried that the mark could be contagious, which makes no sense at all. Either way, she refuses to bear a child for the Duke, point blank. And if that wasn't bad enough, she also wants to bring her lover the knight to her new estate when she moves. Now I can see why there's no child destined to be born in this timeline. Mael is absolutely determined to ignore her future husband in every single aspect. Faced with the end of the world weighing on her shoulders, Elena asks her cousin to let her marry the Duke instead. It seems like Mael would be absolutely delighted at the idea, and so is her father. He didn't really want to send his daughter to a Duke known as a monster, so when Elena decided to step in, he didn't protest much. Elena sends a letter to the Duke asking to change his bride from Lady Mael to Elena Sorte, and soon receives a reply. No problem. It seems like everything is sorted. The only people left to convince are her family, who are rightfully shocked that she would choose to marry a man like Duke Mayhad. Luckily, the Duke agreed to a condition for their marriage which allows her half the profits from his mining business. Once her father hears that, he understands that this will benefit the family. And Elena puts on a good show of being the daughter in love with an outcast. So he agrees. On her wedding day, Elena isn't exactly the blushing bride in love. But considering that the fate of the entire world is on the line, she considers this a small price to pay and is happy to sacrifice her marriage for the sake of those she loves. Looking resplendent in her pure white wedding gown, her servants open the doors to reveal Duke Kai Mayhad, standing by the altar, wearing a mask. Although his face is covered, his eyes stand out. They're such a deep blue that Elena thinks at first that she has fallen into the ocean. Well, maybe there is a chance for love after all. Her father walks her down the aisle, leading her toward this mysterious and slightly intimidating man, who has for some reason decided to wear all black for his wedding day. She can't stop staring at his beautiful eyes. Mael, who ended up as a bridesmaid, even warns her to stop. It's starting to look rude. The Duke reaches out a hand, taking Elena from her father and moving both of them in front of the priest. As the service goes on, Elena starts to notice all the attractive things about him. His hands are large, he's nice and tall, and beneath the finery, it seems like he has pretty good physique. When it comes to say their vows, Elena can't help but feel a little sad. It's so romantic to promise that they will love and cherish one another, but in the end, it's just a formality. When the ceremony is finished, Mael runs out to cry on her shoulder, thanking her for saving her from a fate she considered worse than death. Her father, too, is thankful, but Elena just tells him she wanted to get married. Obviously, that's not the whole story, but she can't be honest in case the Duke overhears her. Her brother is very suspicious of her choice, telling her she won't be able to do any of the things she loves anymore. He asks if she's happy, a question which Elena kind of just avoids. Then her sister shoves him out of the way. She grabs her sister and tells her that she can always come to her if there are ever any problems. It's a very touching moment, until the siblings ruin it by screaming at each other like usual. For potential heirs, they really do act like children, don't they? Saying goodbye to her father, Elena thanks him for raising her and asks him to live well. Damn, this is getting really emotional all of a sudden. Considering the future might still play out how she saw it, there's a good chance he might die in 10 years and her siblings in 15. It's an agonizing fate. She knows how to save the world, but not her own family. Plus, that old hag seems to have vanished for good, so there's no chance of asking her for more clues. Now she just has to focus on her main mission, getting pregnant. Riding back to his estate with the Duke gives Elena a good chance to assess his features. Those eyes are still just as captivating as they were in the church. She's staring at him so long that he tells her not to worry. He's not going to take off his mask in the carriage. I guess he thinks she's afraid of him. He doesn't seem to realize that she's actually eyeing him up like a piece of man candy. The rest of the carriage ride is about as awkward as you'd expect. After a week of traveling, they arrive at the Mayhad mansion, where she is bathed in rose petals by a pair of maids. Not bad for her first day of married life. Once she's out of the tub, however, Elena is overcome by nerves about her first time. Spotting some wine by the side of the table, she pours herself a glass and downs it all in one go. She stayed up all night waiting for the Duke to come to bed, but he never showed. She was so exhausted that she slept until noon. Apparently, the maids had orders from her husband not to wake her, since she needed to rest after the long journey. At first, Elena feels a bit insulted that her husband didn't share a bed with her on their first night. She asks a maid to take her to him, but the Duke isn't in the mansion. There are monsters prowling all night through the territory, which explains why he didn't come home. This reassures Elena. After all, the Duke's territory is fertile. but famous for the occasional monster attack, especially in the areas near the mountains. When he first took over as Duke, the 16-year-old Kai led an expedition to the heart of the monster's den in the dead of winter and slaughtered all the beasts they could find. Since then, the territory has been relatively peaceful, but the occasional mishaps do still happen. In the meantime, his territory has become prosperous and all the citizens live much better lives. Elena thinks that all this is a sign of a very proficient Duke, one who should be praised rather than treated like a monster. But she can't get any closer to him while he's out doing his duty, so she decides to spend her first day exploring her new home and introducing herself to her people. The staff line up in the main hall to make their introductions to their new lady. Ben, the butler, is first, then the head maid Lula, and then the head chef, who is hilariously named Cooker. The head gardener seems the youngest and the most nervous. His name is Gardener. Right. Of course it is. The garden is a point of pride for the Duke, who has hired more than 10 gardeners and is particularly fond of the East Garden, as Ben the butler reveals. Elena then introduces herself as the new mistress of the mansion and asks for their support in the future. She spent the rest of the day exploring the mansion, which took a long time since it's so huge. By the end of the day, she's exhausted, but refuses to fall asleep in case the Duke comes back. Although he has returned from hunting monsters, he doesn't make a visit. By morning, Elena is starting to get frustrated. Somehow, a whole week passes without her seeing his face even once. It really seems like the Duke is avoiding her for some reason, so she walks up to a pair of maids to try and get some answers. They already seem very taken with their new mistress and are actually excited to tell her that the Duke won't seek her out, now or in the future. Wait, what? Apparently, they told him that Elena has fallen sick, so he's been staying away until she feels better. I guess they thought they were doing her a favor, but one look at Elena's face tells them otherwise. They drop to the ground on their knees at once. Of course, if Mael had married the Duke, then she would be hugging and thanking these maids right now. But Elena is different. She doesn't have a week to waste. The whole world is at stake here. Literally. Elena asks the butler how harsh she could be with her maids, and he tells her that the maximum sentence in this territory is cutting out a tongue. Yikes. She settles for a few rounds of beating and a couple of days of starvation, surprising Lula the head maid with her cruelty. Once they've been dragged away by their ears, she asks Ben to lead her to the Duke, who is currently in the library. Finally, she might be able to make some progress with her mission. The Duke is writing at a desk, but he hears her coming a long way off. For once, he isn't wearing his special mask. When Elena sees his real face for the first time, she stops dead in her tracks, staring straight at him. Then she frowns and walks right up to the desk to get a closer look. His markings really don't look that ominous. Definitely nothing like the devil's curse from the rumors. She reaches out to touch them, causing him to flinch. Elena apologized because, well, it is a bit weird to randomly reach out and touch someone's face without warning. Once he gives her permission, she caresses his cheek, thinking that his skin is remarkably smooth. I'm telling you guys, this girl is down bad. Suddenly remembering her manners, she snatches her hand back and starts to explain the whole situation with the maids. The Duke has already heard, although I don't know how since it happened literally 5 minutes ago. Elena says she isn't ill, but she has had trouble sleeping for the past few days since she stays up all night waiting for him to join her. She's very bold and tells him straight up that she doesn't want to sleep alone. Tonight, she promises to wait for him again, hoping that this time he'll actually pay her a visit. Then, before she can get embarrassed, Elena storms from the library and back to her own quarters. She tells a maid to run a bath for her, no longer interested in beautiful petals or lotions now that she's felt how soft the Duke's skin is. Maybe that's the real reason he wears a mask, to protect his precious skin. Waiting for the bath, Elena pours herself a cup of tea to calm her nerves. Night is a long way off, but already she's nervous at the prospect of Kai joining her in the bedroom. And there's the added pressure of the whole saving the world thing too. That night, Elena is true to her word and waits up in bed. Eventually, the Duke makes his appearance, silently opening the door and asking why she seems so nervous. Because you guys are married and it's your first night? Come on, Kai, get with the program. Elena tells him everything is fine, trying not to notice just how tall he is while he walks over to the bed. She also catches a glimpse of his chest while he's climbing onto the sheets. Like I said, she's down bad. He's still in his work clothes and seems a bit surprised that she hasn't run away yet. He asks if she's really determined for them to sleep together, and Elena says of course. They're husband and wife after all. Who else would she sleep with? The Duke doesn't really react to that. He just goes to turn off the lights. Elena dimmed them on purpose to set the mood, but clearly he isn't interested in all that. She stops him just as he's reaching over and asks if he's going to take off his clothes. Whether he's shy or just doesn't like her, I don't know. But for some reason, the Duke says he prefers to keep his shirt and trousers on, thank you very much. What's this guy's problem? She's a beautiful woman and she's his wife. Why is he holding back? The situation only sinks in when Kai rolls over and lays down on the pillow, well and truly proving he wants nothing to do with her. Not in that way, anyway. He falls asleep in literally seconds, leaving Elena shocked on the pillow beside him. After that disappointment comes another the next morning. When she wakes up, her husband is already gone, though his spot on the bed is still a little warm. Reluctantly, Elena gets up and gets dressed. The maid asks if she'd like to have breakfast in the dining room, and she agrees, probably expecting Kai to be there too. But as you might have guessed, the Duke isn't there. He's a real workaholic, and often only takes something small to eat in his office before starting work for the day. Damn, I can see now why she had to get so creative in the first chapter. Elena sits down to a silent and rather lonely breakfast, recounting how one of her friends, a countess, only had her first night with her husband after 2 months of marriage. Maybe it's not so unusual that he's been avoiding her. But of course, her situation isn't like anyone else's. She doesn't have time to be messing around, and besides, it's probably pretty dull just walking around in that big mansion by herself. Night falls, and again the Duke comes to her bedroom. This time, he actually strikes up a conversation, which gives Elena hope that he might finally be interested in you-know-what. Elena assures him she's not tired at all, which makes the Duke smile. He just takes it as a sign that she slept well last night and hopes she gets just as much rest today, too. Oh, come on. With that, he does his usual tuck and roll and is off again in minutes. The day after is exactly the same. So is the next, and the next after that. By 3 days later, Elena is thoroughly fed up. She is not going to be waiting 2 months like the Countess. The next night, she drinks some wine before bed, hoping it will give her the courage to speak up. She asks him if he plans to carry this on, never doing anything with each other. Kai is surprised, but he tells her not to worry about that sort of thing. Even though she's his wife, he promises to never touch her. Not even a finger. Oh, good lord. I don't know how Elena hasn't lost it yet. If it were me, I think I'd have beaten him around the head at this point. The truth is, the idea of marriage and everything that comes with it is foreign to Elena. The matron in charge of her education even left the subject blank, telling her to leave everything to her husband. So what the heck is she supposed to do when the husband won't lift a finger? To her credit, Elena creatively asks if she can touch him instead. And then she not so subtly tries to force his shirt off. Yep, there it is. She's finally lost her patience. The Duke starts freaking out, trying to stop her, while Elena consistently yells at him to take off his clothes, since she seems to be having such a hard time trying to do it herself. Oh god, it's too awkward. I can't watch. The poor Duke is getting flustered. He has no idea why his wife is sitting on top of him screaming to take off his shirt. But instead of maybe asking her a question or telling her to calm down, he just grabs the blanket and wraps his arms around her, holding her tight in his embrace. He tells her to stay still and sleep, even as she's trying to wriggle free on top of him. She resists for a little while, but eventually she falls asleep. And who could blame her? It looks pretty comfy up there. The next morning, Elena is humiliated. She even contemplates smashing her face into her wash bowl to drown herself. But then, who would save the world? Her maid asks if anything is the matter, leaving Elena confused. She doesn't even know where to begin. Of course, she only acted that way because of the wine. The last time she drank so much was with her brother when she was just 15 years old and Edward only 18. Chaos ensued, and the next day, Edward declared she should never drink again. She must have been a real liability. Ever since then, she's tried to drink as moderately as possible. Well, excluding last night. Embarrassed, Elena dunks her whole head in the water bowl and asks her maid to bring a new one as cold as possible. Humiliation and a hangover. What a horrible combination. She decides to take breakfast in the reading lounge of her chambers and requests that lunch and dinner be brought there too. The maid is a little taken aback but agrees. In a moment of insecurity, Elena asks her maid if she's not beautiful and demanding her honest opinion. So far, that's the only reason she can think of that the Duke would be so determined not to touch her. But the maid confirms that she's very attractive, and so is her personality. Damn right, girl! Don't let that man make you doubt yourself. The maid gives a whole speech about how divine her features are, going on and on about her beautiful skin, her silver hair, her petite face, and even her forehead, which is apparently just the right size. The maid even goes so far as to declare that no man in the whole wide world could look at her and think she isn't beautiful. Even the Duke. Which is probably true, but then why is he rejecting her? Instilled with a new sense of confidence, Elena tells Abby, the maid, to request a lunch with the Duke. Actually, it's more like an order. The Duke agrees to come to lunch, not that he had much of a choice, where they're served a beautiful spread of food at opposite ends of a very long table. Seriously, how much more awkward can things get? They both look a little uncomfortable, seeing as they can't even make eye contact from that far apart. But then the Duke makes an effort to chat, asking about her body. I guess what he means to say is, "Are you hungover?" But at least he put it politely. Elena assures him she's fine and thanks him for his concern. The Duke expresses his relief to hear that she's in good condition. And they're back to square one again. Every time she looks at him, she remembers the humiliation of trying to rip his clothes off last night. But she also remembers how handsome he looked while he was sleeping, and how strong his arms felt holding her against him. The same strong arms which are currently laid on the table. This girl is so easily aroused. The Duke tells Ben, the butler, to send everyone out of the dining room, suddenly leaving them alone together. Then he asks if last night was just because of the alcohol, or does she genuinely want to be with him? Elena is delighted at the opportunity for a second chance and says yes, she genuinely is interested in her husband. So she apologizes, unable to hide the blush creeping over her cheeks. Kai puts her at ease about it, but he points out that they've only been married for 3 weeks. Wait, does he think that's not a long time? Dude, most people have their first night the same day as the wedding. Elena forces herself to admit that she's not a patient person and asks how much longer she's supposed to wait. The Duke seems a little sad after that and asks if the house is really in need of an heir. Does he not want to carry on his bloodline? He briefly asks about her siblings, wondering if perhaps she's concerned that her own family name could be in danger. Elena assures him that everyone is perfectly healthy. That's not the problem. This leaves the Duke quite confused, and he even asks if there was anything in the contract about having kids. Oh my god, can't he understand that it's perfectly normal to want a family of your own? Even if their marriage was technically a business contract, they don't have to treat each other so coldly. Kai is genuinely curious as to why she wants to be with him, but she just reminds him that they're husband and wife. That's what married couples do. Of course, she can't mention the prophecy about their child saving the world. He'd probably think she's insane. The Duke hangs his head and says he can't give her what she wants. Not just about kids. He doesn't want to have a first night at all. He reassures Elena that it's nothing to do with her, and even kind of admits that he's attracted to her. As an apology, he offers her anything else, anything at all, except a night with him. Elena wants nothing except the chance to save the world, and clearly the Duke is determined in his resolution. So that leaves his wife no choice. If he refuses to do anything, she'll do it herself. Oh god, I think we all know where this is going. Being the innocent girl that she is, Elena heads straight to the library to try and figure out a way to seduce him. She finds a trilogy of books titled The World of Husband and Wife, which is aimed specifically at improving the relationship of married couples, if you get the hint. Checking that there's no one around, she starts reading it at once. The next day, her maid enters her chambers to find the lady exhausted from a whole night of reading. She finished 5 books just in that one night. Clearly, Elena is not the type who can survive on little sleep, which is honestly very relatable. She intends to have a shower and wash up, but ends up passed out on her bed and snoozing in a chair after that. She accidentally falls asleep and slams her head on the desk, summoning one of her maids who storms in at once. Great. So now not only is she embarrassed and sleep-deprived, but also injured? I hope she doesn't meet the Duke in this condition. Speak of the devil, Elena is just thinking of Kai when she gets a sudden brainwave. After all, she didn't stay up doing the reading for nothing. Not caring about the giant bump on her face, she slams open the doors to the Duke's study and asks for a moment of his time. After getting over the initial shock of her arrival, the Duke says yes, he does have time, and asks what she needs. Elena announces that she has come to take him up on his offer. Yesterday, he said he'll agree to anything else as long as it isn't a husband-wife relationship. So today, she asks him to accept her presents, to not send her away, and then asks for the servants to leave them alone. Ooh, something tells me things are gonna get steamy in the library. At the Duke's orders, the servants leave the room. Now that they've got some privacy at last, Elena can put to use some of those new tricks she's learned from her books. At first, she sits on his desk, smiling coyly at him as she crosses her legs and asks him what's up. Is that her big move? Oh dear, this is going to be worse than I thought. As if that wasn't weird enough, this is actually a tactic she's used on her brother before. There was a time when they were having an argument, Edward and Elena, and he told her to get off his desk and stop acting like a little girl. she refused to get down until he admitted she was right, and it worked. So I guess she's hoping that if she's stubborn enough, the Duke will just give in. Anyone else have a feeling this is not going to work? The first sign of disaster is that he has no reaction to her acting cute. The second is that he can't stop staring at the bump on her head, which has grown absolutely massive by now. Trying to act flirty, Elena tells him not to worry about the table. She's light enough that it won't break. Kai just says he knows. Obviously, because he lifted her up and held her on his chest the other night. But Elena pushes on, playing with her shoes as she asks him to praise her. For example, he could tell her how beautiful she is. Although, with that huge growth on her face, it's probably not the best day to say it. After a little convincing, the Duke tells Elena she's beautiful, with enough sincerity that it catches his wife off guard. She slips on the desk, which ends up being kind of a genius move when her husband catches her midair with one hand around her waist. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Elena tries to recover herself, hopping back on the desk a little flustered and asking him to continue with his compliments. He lists off her features, somewhat reluctantly, and with less than half the enthusiasm of Abby the maid. But a compliment is a compliment, I guess, and he does say something a bit more original about her fingers being pretty. Elena gives up and tells him that's enough. But while they're sitting in more awkward silence, she takes a silent inventory of his own handsome features, including his nose and deep blue eyes. She ends up right in front of him and even calls him handsome out loud. Uh-oh, here we go again. Desperate to regain some confidence, Elena asks him to call her by name, which he does, obediently. From now on, she asks him to always call her by name when they're together. With that, she walks off, thanking him for his time, like it's some kind of business meeting. She also tells him there's no need to come to the bedroom anymore, since that plan clearly wasn't working. And then, like any humiliated young girl, she runs back to her bedroom to hide under the covers. It's only when a maid comes in with a special ointment sent by the Duke that she notices how big her bump has got and smashes a mirror in her fury. Yep, that's our relatable queen, all right. The discovery of the bump leads to a roller coaster of emotions for our little Duchess. First, she is frustrated, then self-deprecating, exhausted, and moody. On the 5th day after her desk seduction scheme, Elena comes to a state of acceptance, mostly because the bump has finally healed. At night, she wanders into the hallway with a lantern, catching the eye of one of the guards. When she tells him she's having trouble sleeping, he offers to accompany her on a walk. But Elena refuses and says she'll only walk to the end of the hallway and back. Obviously, that's not true, because today, now that she's back at full strength, Elena plans to begin phase 2 of the seduction scheme. After thinking about it like a battle plan, she realized the most obvious advantage is the element of surprise, making a night attack far more likely to succeed if she can catch him off guard. And since she basically stayed in her room for 5 days, the Duke probably thinks she's calmed down by now. She deliberately made an effort to seem less bothered around him. But if Kai thinks his new wife has eased into her life of solitude, he would be poorly mistaken. She sneaks into his bedroom, shutting the door quietly behind her and walking to his bed. Now we return to a familiar scene, Elena standing over the Duke while he sleeps soundly in bed. Without any hesitation, she clambers up on the bed and, well, we know the rest. On the first attempt, she was wrapped up in a blanket. The second day was the sheets. She didn't even bother on the 3rd day, knowing the outcome would just be the same anyway. It leaves Elena frustrated. She even contemplates telling him about the prophecy to get him to sleep with her. Yeah, somehow, I don't think that would go down too well. The only thing that might add some credibility to the prophecy is if she had the old lady there to explain it herself. That gives Elena the idea to try and paint her likeness from memory so that they can hunt her down again. But then a bee appears in front of her face and shocks her so much that she trips backward. Well, that was random, but not as random as the gorgeous blonde who catches her. Who is this handsome man? He asks if she's okay, gently pulling her upright as Elena tries not to shiver from his touch. He clearly knows who she is and introduces himself as Incan Marzon. That rings a bell in her head. He must be the second son of the Viscount Marzon, who visits the Duke often to bring medicinal herbs. It turns out that's the reason he came to visit this time. He always brings the herbs himself, despite the long journey. He's going to be staying in the city for a few days, so I'm sure they'll bump into one another again. But for some reason, Elena doesn't seem like she wants to. Something about that guy gave her a chill, literally. When she returns to her chambers, Elena asks Abby the maid if she knows anything about Incan Marzon. She ends up being something of a super fan, but as we know already, Abby doesn't do anything half-heartedly. She pulls up a portrait of the man, conveying every available detail about his life as if it was a class presentation project. He's 27, a middle child, and currently unmarried. Elena assumes he must be a bit of a flirt if he's not found a wife, but actually, that's not the case. He has a very good reputation among nobles and servants alike, as he's known to treat his subordinates well. He gave up the position of successor, stepping aside to allow his sister Rebecca to take the role of head of the family. So then, why did Elena get such a bad feeling when he touched her? She even asks Abby to touch the same spot, trying to recreate the sensation with little success. Then she wonders if it was only because Incan is a boy. In that case, she needs a more accurate subject for her experiment. I think we all know where this is going. Elena arrives at the Duke's study, interrupting what is probably very important business to awkwardly ask if she can borrow his hand. Like any normal person, the Duke is taken aback, but he offers it to her anyhow, allowing Elena to take it in hers. The Duke obviously feels a little flutter, but his wife feels nothing. Although she does enjoy how soft his hands are, despite a few calluses from all the sword fighting he must do. He's got the perfect physique for it too. Long limbs, strong muscles, big hands. Uh-oh, Elena's in Fantasyland again. It's so easy to distract her. She suddenly lets go of his hand, mumbling something about finding it interesting how different their bodies are. As a demonstration, she holds his hand up against hers, leading to another moment of uncomfortable silence where they refuse to make eye contact. Forget getting him into bed, Elena. If this is how he reacts every time you touch him, there's no hope for saving the world. But while Kai is a little thrown, Elena is completely unashamed and sticks her arm out for him next, asking him to touch her bicep. When he gives her a funny look, she reminds him of the promise he made, to give her everything she wants, except a romantic relationship, of course. So the Duke gently squeezes her arm, and again, she feels nothing. Actually, that's not true, but it sure as heck isn't the same thing she felt with Incan Marzon. Once she's satisfied, the Duke immediately slides away, so she thanks him for his time and takes her leave, not noticing the blush on her husband's cheeks. Is that the real reason he won't do anything with her? Because he's just super shy? For Elena, at least, that mini-investigation turned up nothing. She's on her way to grab a bite to eat when she overhears the maids talking about a criminal. Her first thought is that they must be talking about Incan, especially since they mentioned that the criminal had a good reputation. Whoever they're talking about is really bad news. They turned out to be a human trafficker, and the only reason they suspected anything was because they bumped into the guy and got goosebumps. I guess people in these parts take goosebumps really seriously. One of the maids even goes so far as to tell her friend that goosebumps are always a sign that a woman should run. How creepy is that? Elena is thinking over their words, standing shocked in the hallway while she tries to figure out what she should do. At just that moment, the man of the hour appears right over her shoulder. Ugh, that would creep me out too. He plays the role of a perfect innocent, apologizing for startling her and even flashing some puppy eyes for show. Elena tries to act normal, although, as we know by now, she's not very good at hiding her facial expressions. He asks if she was on her way to the dining room, and when Elena reluctantly says yes, he perks up and asks if they can go together. Ignoring the ancient female instinct to run in the opposite direction, she politely declines with the excuse that she's not hungry. She politely excuses herself before Incan can make any more attempts to get friendly, wandering down the halls while her brain runs a mile a minute. Later that day, while she's eating with the Duke, she asks how long their guest is staying. Her husband reports that the herb exchange is already complete, so he'll be leaving soon. But that sparks another suspicion in Elena's mind. What if he's tampered with the herbs? She doesn't think of her own health, but those of her staff and also the Duke's reputation, which is bad enough to begin with. Kai can see her hands shaking and asks if something is wrong. Meanwhile, she's having a fantasy about saving the duchy from a potential villain and being rewarded with, well, you can guess what. So she says she's fine, barely hiding a burning determination for revenge. After their meal, Elena tasks her maid Abby with secretly investigating Incan Marzon. And she wants to know everything. Rumors, relationships, his day-to-day, all of it. She also hands over a portrait of the old prophet lady, ordering the staff to find this woman whatever the cost. As per usual, Abby doesn't question anything. She just agrees and runs off to do her job right away. That evening, Elena makes the surprising move to have dinner with Incan, alone. She claims it's just her duty as mistress of the manor, and also says he's helped her in some suspicious way. But Incan doesn't suspect a thing. even when she plainly states that the Duke won't be attending this dinner. Elena asks if he's sad because the Duke isn't here, but Inken seems perfectly fine and just keeps smiling his golden retriever smile. I wonder if he really is a villain or if this is all one big misunderstanding. The maid drops a cup that she was about to present him, and Inken immediately apologizes to her and attempts to clear it up himself. That's not something just anyone would do. Most nobles would ignore the servant and go on with their meal. His kindness makes the maids blush, but with every sign of innocence, Elena only becomes more and more suspicious. As he sits back down again, Inken compliments the chef, saying the food gets better every time he visits. Talking about food makes the Duchess drop her guard, blabbing about how good the meat and desserts are. She also mentions that the gardener is very skilled, so Inken suggests that they take a walk after they finish eating. She agrees, and soon the unlikely pair are strolling through the grounds together. Finally, time for some real investigation. Elena asks about his herb delivery. Since he lives so far away, it would surely be inconvenient to travel long distance as often as he does. But Inken doesn't seem to mind it. Actually, he likes coming to deliver herbs to the Duke, since herbs are something everyone needs, something that can save lives. It makes him feel responsible to be in charge of delivering such important things. Okay, is anyone else starting to get the feeling that he's really a good guy? He's kind of a sweetheart. Elena is still sus, but she assures him that his work is very meaningful and he must be very kind. Although her expression says the total opposite. Then, out of nowhere, the same bee from earlier flies in front of her face and trips her over. And just like last time, Inken catches her mid-air. She gets the same shiver again, but this time, even she's starting to question her own instincts. She's still feeling around her arm when Abby returns, and reports that she couldn't find anything suspicious about their visitor. However, she did find out that a servant from the Marzahn mansion quit their job after only 2 months with the family. That in itself isn't unusual, but when she looks closer at their own house records, she realizes that the number of servants quitting their jobs has increased ever since Inken began delivering herbs, around 3 years ago. Elena summons the head maid Lula and asks her for an explanation. Why did these servants quit after working at the estate? Lula hadn't thought of it before, but suddenly occurs to her that all the maids listed had the same reason for quitting. Some kind of emergency demanded they return to their hometowns. She summons the maids who were closest to those who quit, and one of them mentions something weird that she noticed at the time. The maids who quit seemed to be in pain and even gagged while mumbling the word impossible. Well, that's pretty sinister. The other maids back up her story and say they often heard similar expressions like, "That's ridiculous," as well. But no one knows why or what happened to them after they left. Which is kind of concerning, actually. If you saw people being sick and muttering creepy things, wouldn't you, tell somebody? Anyway, that's the most Elena can get out of them, so she sends the maids back to their posts. Now she's even more confused than before. She has lots of information and more questions than she can answer. So she goes back for round 2 of her investigation, approaching Inken the next day with a basket of some very expensive wine, and an excuse that she wants to talk her troubles away with him. He accepts at once, welcoming her inside his quarters with a slightly surprised look. He points out that it's a little early in the day to be drinking, especially when Elena is closing the curtain and trying to make the atmosphere a little more intimate. She claims it's hard for her to open up without alcohol, which is kind of a concerning statement in itself, and then also says she likes to drink in the dark. Our girl is kind of coming off as a weirdo right now, but Inken is too polite to say anything about her strange choices. The two sit down while Elena brings out 2 glasses and the first bottle of expensive wine. She claims there's nothing super special that she wanted to talk about. She just doesn't want the Duke to hear it. And then she pours herself the biggest glass in existence, glaring at him while Inken starts to sweat. Since he's the only foreigner in this territory, she assumes he must have kept his fair share of secrets. Reluctantly, Inken admits that she's right and takes a big gulp of his wine. He finishes his glass and promises that whatever Elena tells him will not be shared with anyone else. I guess her tactic is to get him drunk enough to open up in front of her. The only problem is that the wine is really strong. And as we've seen before, our little Duchess isn't the best at handling her liquor. That's why she pours some out on her handkerchief instead of drinking and fills their glasses up again and again. In less than 10 minutes, Inken is a babbling wreck. Fortunately, she has managed to avoid getting drunk herself. Before she can start asking the big questions, she covers her intentions with some general conversation about marital life, complaining about the lack of children in her life. She was just saying something for the sake of it, but Inken suddenly tells her he can solve this problem and asks what she will give him in return. Elena effectively says she'll give him anything, so he reveals that he has a special kind of medicine, one that will get her pregnant. Oh, here we go. This sounds suspicious as heck. Blushing and smiling a little creepily, Inken says that she can still get pregnant even without having sex. This suddenly catches Elena's attention, and she spills her wine in shock. After all, that's biologically impossible. Inken points out that wine is now dripping all over the carpet, but Elena is too intrigued to care. She demands he explain himself, so he tells her it's true. If she takes a special pill, she can get pregnant immediately. That must have been why those women were gagging and saying impossible to themselves, because they didn't believe it was true. It sounds like it could be the perfect solution for Elena until he insults her husband. Inken acts sympathetic, assuming that she wants a child but doesn't want to have a baby with a monster like the Duke. It seems like Inken's mother had a very big influence on him, convincing him from a young age that women are at a disadvantage in this world, and that even her own son would grow up to be trash just like his father. Well, she's not exactly wrong, but that's a little harsh to tell your own kid. The next day she apologized and held him close. Inken loved his mother, despite the madness that slowly took her health until she was barely a shell of her former self. Ever since then, he has been determined to find a way to give women freedom by allowing them to have children all on their own without relying on horrible men. Elena, ignoring the crazy look in his eye and the evil things he said about the Duke, asks if he already tested it on other people. He confesses that he did indeed give the pill to 3 maids, all of whom were virgins and came from very faraway places. Now Elena has the proof she needed. She gets up from her chair and tells him she'll think about it. As she's trying to leave, Inken reaches out and grabs her hand, asking about his reward. He wants to give her the pill immediately so that he can get something in return. She says he's drunk and that she'll talk to him when he's sobered up, so he just takes a potion and is back to normal straight away. Freaky! But even freakier is what he says next. The only reward he wants is her, Elena. From the moment they first met, he was taken with her and thought she felt the same. While he stayed at their estate, he kept thinking what a waste it would be for a beauty like her to fall into the hands of a monster like the Duke. Wow, he's really showing his true colors now. Elena can't stand it anymore. She gives him a kick to the stomach and starts beating Inken, telling him not to call her husband a monster and yelling all kinds of curse words at him. You go, girl! Defend your man! Suddenly, Inken catches her mid-swing and tells her to take back the curses she called him. Things are looking rough for Elena until suddenly the doors to the chamber swing open and in storm the guards and Abby. It turns out the bracelet she's wearing is a matching pair with Abby's. She used it to alert the attention of her maid, so she grabbed the men and got moving as soon as she received the signal. Inken is taken to the dungeons, but somehow he has the arrogance to act like he did nothing wrong. He claims there's no evidence that the maids didn't consent to trying the medicine. He didn't even specify that they were maids from the Duke's estate. Elena was so close to having all the evidence to putting him behind bars, but still, they've come up just short. Luckily, the Duke is involved now and has some tricks up his sleeve. He summoned the house doctor who quit just a few months ago, and he confessed that the maids who had quit were in fact pregnant and also virgins. He had been bribed by the Marzone family to tell the maids they were cursed instead of revealing the truth, that they were guinea pigs for Inken's little experiment. The doctor also used the Duke's own reputation to cover up the truth, spreading even more rumors about him among the nobility and the commoners. Ugh, what a mess! And no one had any idea this was going on? The doctor, in accordance with the punishment of the land, had his tongue and hands cut off. Inken is still being interrogated, but the evidence is piled up against him. They're sure he'll confess soon enough. But the only reason they could reveal the truth is because husband and wife work together as a team. So the next time Elena sees the Duke, she demands a private conversation and drags him away at once. Once they're behind closed doors, she asks him straight up, is the reason he won't sleep with her in any way related to certain rumors about the Duke's abilities? Oh, we're really in the thick of things now! Late at night, Kai tends to Elena's bruise at her request, his touch careful and unexpectedly gentle. The plan may have failed again, but at least the treatment itself feels sincere. Elena notices the roughness of his hands and asks about it, curious rather than suspicious. Kai explains that he started sword training at a very young age. The answer catches Elena off guard, and she can't help picturing a much smaller Kai struggling with an oversized sword. She giggles, then starts rambling, clearly interested in learning more about his past. Kai only offers a shy smile, quietly enduring her sudden enthusiasm while Elena hurriedly tries to smooth over her own awkwardness. These two are terrible at hiding their reactions. Not ready to give up, Elena lightly nudges the mood again, dropping subtle hints and leaning into her charms. Kai, unfazed, cuts the attempt short by turning off the lamp. Poor Elena! Your husband is good at avoiding your temptation. Defeated for the night, Elena gives up and lets her thoughts drift elsewhere, settling on Inkin's suspicious experiment. The topic alone seems to keep her restless. Kai overhears her murmuring and shares what he learned from Inkin's interrogation. He suggests that tracing the origin of the drug might be the key to understanding everything. Elena, already exhausted, responds with a flurry of half-formed questions before her voice trails off. Sleep quickly claims her. As Elena rests, Kai remains awake, troubled by her concern. Wanting answers, he activates the magical bead to listen in on the earlier conversation between Elena and Inkin that night. Elsewhere in the forest, Inkin is escorted out of the Empire, eager to put distance between himself and Imperial custody. The journey is cut short when the escorts suddenly stop, their screams echoing through the trees. A monster strikes without warning, tearing through the guards and shattering the carriage. Left unprotected, Inkin's pleas ring out as the forest descends into chaos. Whatever secrets he carried, they may not survive the night. The next day, noblewomen gather for tea, exchanging gossip with practiced elegance. The atmosphere buzzes as familiar names resurface, and soon enough, the conversation turns to Inkin. Madame Gashiv casually mentions that Inkin suffered an accident on the road, claiming a monster attack caused the disturbance. The table reacts instantly, voices overlapping as everyone demands more details. No matter what universe, gossip is life. Shock spreads when she adds that both his escort and charioteer disappeared entirely. The women glance at one another, already imagining the worst. Madame Gashiv smooths the tension by assuring them Inkin survived. Relief settles in, though the interest only sharpens. She then explains that the monster attacked because Inkin concealed rare herbs in an inappropriate place, which apparently attracted the creature. The table falls silent before erupting in disbelief. An explanation no one could have predicted. When questioned about her sources, Madame Gashiv laughs softly and hints at having connections everywhere. The women praise her insight, eager as she continues tarnishing Inkin's already fragile reputation. Back in the Empire, Elena pulls Abi into a tight hug after hearing Inkin has been demoted to a eunuch. She dances around her room, barely containing her excitement. Justice tastes sweet today. On her way to Kai's office, Elena stops an unfamiliar escort and questions him without hesitation. Haste introduces himself and expresses gratitude for finally serving someone kind. Elena accepts his sincerity and moves on. Kai appears just as she reaches his office and suggests a walk. They stroll together before settling on a bench, where Kai timidly begins asking questions. Elena answers openly, then grows curious herself. Lost in a fond memory, she only realizes too late that her hand is resting on his thigh. She quickly apologizes, saying that she's just imagining something. She then questions why she would be afraid of spending time with him. Kai finally responds, telling Elena that he would never harm her or deceive her. He explains that he keeps his distance only to spare her from the rumors surrounding his curse. Elena brushes it aside, saying she feels fortunate just to spend time with him. Gossip does not matter to her, even if it turns ugly. She really is fearless when it comes to him. Kai falls silent, staring at her as if unsure how to respond. He then changes the subject, admitting that he loves the East Garden. In the past, it was so overgrown that no one bothered tending it, and the paths were nearly impassable. Back then, Kai often hid among the thick bushes. The image makes Elena's chest ache as she imagines how lonely his childhood must have been. No child should feel forgotten. Kai stands and continues, finally speaking without restraint. He admits that the rumors never truly bothered him, but his fear lies elsewhere. He apologizes for refusing to have children, unwilling to pass on his birthmark. The honesty hits Elena hard, leaving her momentarily stunned. The truth is heavy, and he makes no attempt to soften it. Later in her room, Elena questions Abi, hoping to learn more about Kai's parents. Abi explains that they were known as generous and kind, deeply devoted to their children despite the rumors surrounding the family. Realizing the butler might know more, Elena seeks out Ben and asks about the former Duke and Duchess. Ben quietly apologizes and refuses to share their story. With no answers left to chase for now, Elena excuses him, her curiosity only growing. Secrets like these never stay buried forever. Elena remains restless, her thoughts circling back to Kai's childhood. Ben's expression lingers in her mind, clearly different from Abi's gentle explanation. That look tells her there is more left unsaid. She imagines Kai growing up neglected, learning to hide his feelings so well that he refuses to burden anyone, even future children. The thought tightens her chest. That kind of loneliness leaves marks deeper than rumors. Frustration bubbles over, and Elena punches the couch. She is certain Kai's child would grow into a hero, yet proving the rumors wrong would mean bearing that child herself, something her current situation makes impossible. She collapses onto the bed, replaying her failed attempts to sway Kai. Her thoughts drift to a life where they have a child together, imagining it far too easily. She reminds herself that becoming a mother would change everything. Well, at least she'll have an amazing husband and an adorable kid. Shaking it off, Elena sits up and convinces herself she will raise that child well, no matter what. Still, a new question nags at her. Why did Kai suddenly choose honesty now? The answer dawns on her slowly. Maybe he finally trusts her. The realization fills her with hope, warm enough to lull her into sleep. Morning arrives quickly. Abby wakes her with news that Ben has located the person Elena has been searching for. Elena rushes to Ben and stops before a closed door, steadying herself. Abby and Ben quietly leave her alone as she enters and faces the mysterious woman. Though familiar, the woman behaves differently than before. She introduces herself as a gifted elder, and Elena greets her politely while doubting every word. Something feels rehearsed. Without hesitation, Elena asks her to help Kai see the future and the disaster threatening the kingdom. The woman responds calmly, saying there's no point because the future cannot be changed. Elena reels in shock and presses the woman again for answers. The response is calm but unsettling. The woman reminds her of an earlier message, explaining that a warrior can only be born from the bond between two souls. Elena pieces it together, realizing that without genuine love, the birth itself would mean nothing. So love is not optional after all. The woman signals the end of their conversation and turns away. Before Elena can stop her, the woman chants in an unfamiliar language, pulling Elena into a hazy trance. As Elena murmurs about sacrifice, the woman instructs her to forget everything. Darkness settles in, and Elena slips into sleep. She jolts awake moments later, screaming in frustration when she realizes the woman is gone. Storming outside, Elena kicks a solid stone and instantly regrets it. With her foot throbbing, she collapses onto a bench to steady herself. Pain always arrives on time. At least she managed to ask about saving her family. Elena exhales, replaying the woman's poetic answer and slowly trying to decipher its meaning. Her thoughts shift to the second problem. Love is necessary for the future hero. Elena stares ahead, wondering what love truly is and how one is even supposed to create it. No answers come. Overwhelmed, she vents to Abby while being handed a cup of tea. The warmth helps, but only slightly. Ben soon knocks, explaining compensation matters and revealing that Kai ordered the servants to grant Elena anything she wants. The kindness feels strange. Alarmed, Elena jumps to her own conclusion. She rushes to Kai's office and confronts him about the divorce. Kai explains that their marriage contract may no longer serve a purpose. Elena refuses outright, declaring she does not want to separate. Tears spill as she asks if he hates her. Kai denies it immediately and admits he believes she never wanted the marriage to begin with. Well, she did only want to marry him just to give birth to the hero. The realization hits Elena hard. She firmly states she will not accept a divorce, even without a child, and she refuses to abandon her resolve. Kai quietly admits he has noticed how sincerely Elena treats him. And just like that, the distance narrows. With the tension eased, Elena excuses herself, believing the matter is settled. Before she can leave, Kai stops her and offers ointment for her swollen hand. Only then does Elena notice the soreness. She waves it off and reassures him she's fine, refusing to help. Despite that, the ointment still finds its way to her room later that day. Elena sighs and lets it go. Aww, I really wish Kai would apply the ointment on her hand. Left alone, her thoughts spiral toward divorce. She replays what might have happened if it went through, recalling the agreement between the Duke and her uncle. The conclusion stings. Kai would have suffered the most. Elena pouts and quickly shifts gear. If love is the answer, then she will simply have to make him fall for her. Let's just hope her plan for this one will work. The next day, servants see Elena off as she heads out to visit a friend. She arrives at a warm welcome from Rosalind, who greets her with an enthusiastic embrace. They move into the garden where several noblewomen are already gathered. Rosalind introduces Elena, and the tea party begins without delay. By the end, Elena is drained. She vents to Rosalind about enduring pointed remarks and thinly veiled judgments about her relationship with Kai. In her mind, she imagines splashing water across the table. Tempting, but unladylike. Rosalind asks why Elena attended at all, knowing how unpleasant these gatherings can be. Elena admits she needed information, and events like this were perfect for it. She dismisses every rumor about Kai and openly admits her feelings for him. Later, she thanks Rosalind, satisfied that Viscountess de Liver attended. With her ties to Madame Gashiv, the message will travel fast. Suddenly, Elena asks Rosalind for advice on love. The request stuns her friend, who immediately jumps to conclusions. Elena turns away, embarrassed, then grabs Rosalind's hand and begs her to teach her anyway. Rosalind finally agrees to help after seeing Elena's determination and asks about the man Elena is trying to win. Elena hesitates, unsure of herself. Her confidence is kind of questionable. She carefully describes Kai, noting his habits, demeanor, and quiet kindness. Rosalind listens, slowly realizing he sounds unusually gentle and well-loved. Then Elena admits it's Kai. Rosalind freezes. Girl, of course she'd be seducing her husband. She badly needs that baby to be born. She suggests being straightforward, but Elena has tried without success. Rosalind is shocked and jokes about how bold Elena seems. They brainstorm a plan together before parting, Rosalind sending Elena off with encouragement. Back at the mansion, Elena's early return surprises Ben, who urges her to rest. On the way to her room, she recalls her father's affectionate gestures toward her mother and how she once mimicked them as a child. While changing, she learns that Kai retired early. Assuming he's unwell, she rushes to his room but is stopped by a knight. Ben explains that Kai has a fever and refuses her help. Elena fumbles with the medicine box as Ben enters. Confused, she retreats. Later, Abby says Ben has left. Elena climbs to the balcony but slips. Fortunately, Kai grabs her hand, pulling her to safety. Thankfully, Kai is still a knight in shining armor despite being ill. Kai catches Elena just in time and lifts her into his arms, leaving her flustered and speechless. Her face burns as she takes in his build, forcing herself to look away. Look at her being shy. They're so cute. Once inside his room, Kai questions what she would have done if he had not saved her. Elena apologizes for acting recklessly, hoping to ease his anger. Kai admits his fear of her getting hurt, while Elena fires back with her own worries, explaining how frantic she felt knowing he was sick and barred from seeing him. His silence pushes her to clarify that she never meant to force her way in. Up close, Elena realizes his fever has worsened. She quickly guides him to bed and prepares to tend to him, searching for supplies just as Ben walks in and freezes. Seeing Kai's condition, Ben quietly hands her warm water and a towel before leaving them alone. Elena wipes Kai's sweat and warns that she needs to loosen his robe to help him cool down. As she does, she notices old burn marks on his shoulder. When she asks him to turn, even more scars appear across his back. Who did this to our sweet Kai? Kai explains that the scars came from his mother's punishment and his father's indifference. Elena trembles as she listens, then realizes she is crying. How could a parent be so cruel? Kai reassures her that the past no longer hurts him. Elena disagrees silently, continuing to care for him and wishing he would call her by her name. The next day, Elena checks on Kai in his office and confirms he's better. Satisfied, she leaves, intending to speak privately with Ben. Back in her room, Ben apologizes for his behavior the other day. Elena waves it off, more concerned with Kai's fever. Ben explains that Kai has had sudden, unexplained fever since childhood, long before those people started tormenting him. Elena is shocked by his casual tone, noticing he even skipped using honorifics when referring to the Duke's family. He laughs lightly, offering to formally reintroduce himself, wanting to make sure she understands his loyalty and care. Elena, realizing she has earned his trust, asks about Kai's parents' accident, suspecting it was no coincidence. Ben recounts the tragic events. Years ago, a maid was murdered. Kai's younger brother had committed the act, and the family covered it up. The maid's older brother had retaliated, killing members of Kai's family in revenge. Elena freezes, piecing together the tangled truth. She learns that Kai's brother revealed the secret by accident, drunk and unaware of the servant's connections. Ben emphasizes that both he and Kai have kept the truth hidden for years, Kai feeling responsible for his family's deaths. Ben admits that he too carries guilt for protecting the servant and staying silent. The family's tragedy weighed heavily, yet Kai was still branded as cursed. Ben's voice trembles with remorse and regret. No wonder Kai carries so much on his shoulders. Elena reassures him gently, urging him to care for himself despite the burden. With a confident stride, she leaves, leaving Ben feeling lighter, comforted, and unexpectedly relaxed. Elena arrives at the training grounds and spots Kai mid-practice, his focus sharp as he flicks swords from the knights one by one. She cheers, feeling proud. Who knew watching swordplay could be so mesmerizing? Overhearing nearby knights, Elena realizes they're mocking Kai, calling his birthmark a devil's gift. One even jokes about having one to gain the same power. Elena's temper flares. She storms over to Thomas and stomps on his foot, scolding him for disrespecting Kai. Serves him right! A nearby servant carries a towel, but Elena takes it herself, insisting she can handle things. Seeing Kai finish training, she offers to walk him back. As they stroll, Kai notices her quiet demeanor and asks what's troubling her. Elena explains the knight's behavior and her foot-stomping intervention, then admits frustration that Kai didn't reprimand them. Kai calmly explains that Thomas is a great knight and is unaffected by their teasing. Elena ponders his honesty and keeps walking, side by side with him. A few days later, Elena frets over Kai's lack of interest. Her plan to gift him something meaningful seems pointless. She asks Ben for insight, but he recalls nothing helpful. Undeterred, she takes Rosalind's advice and arranges a carriage to the capital, determined to find the perfect gift. Arriving in the bustling streets, Elena notices villagers screaming. A thief charges towards her, but before panic sets in, she realizes neither she nor her maid is harmed. Thomas has already subdued the thief. Maybe I misjudged him, but he still needs to check his behavior. The Capitol Guard drags the thief away, thanking Thomas for his quick action. Elena watches, remembering Kai's kind words about Thomas's potential. She approaches him, giving thanks for handling the situation, but refuses to accept an apology for his earlier rudeness. Thomas, still absorbing her lecture, nods with understanding. Elena gently reminds him that Kai values skill and potential over small mistakes, which explains why he didn't fire him despite his arrogance. Sometimes honesty hits harder than anger. Thomas promises to correct his behavior, determined to improve. Elena smiles quietly, pleased that her words made a difference. The satisfaction is subtle but powerful. The next day, Elena casually asks the maids how Thomas treats them. Hearing nothing but praise for his kindness and diligence, she feels conflicted. But when she mentions him to Ben, fire appears in his eyes. Before she can even ask, the butler is quick to express his frustration with Thomas. Slowly, he explains that Thomas's cocky attitude toward Kai had annoyed him to no end. His veins seem ready to pop as he recounts moments he wished Kai would fire him, yet Kai remains steadfast. Elena grins, sharing her own encounter with Thomas. Ben's expression shifts to delight, appreciating that she had lectured him effectively. He reminds her that Kai only lets Thomas stay because of his abilities, not because of blind favoritism. She's growing quite the network of loyal allies. That night, Elena visits Kai, requesting a stroll in the garden. As they wander beneath the soft glow of lanterns, she twiddles a pin in her hands, nervously deciding how to present her gift. She directs him to sit on a bench, then carefully clips the pin onto his sleeve. Kai is genuinely touched, his usual stoicism giving way to warmth. Elena explains that since he doesn't have any preference, maybe they should try establishing them, starting with pink as his favorite color. Elena feels a quiet happiness. Small gestures, honest words, and subtle victories like these make her world feel lighter. Even heroes need pins and little reminders that someone cares. I can't wait for them to finally get together! Choosing a gift for Kai wasn't as easy as Elena thought it would be. Luckily for her, the sales lady came to her rescue, redirecting her to a pair of cufflinks that mirror her own eye color. Not gonna lie, but those cufflinks absolutely look good on him. So good that Elena can't take her eyes off Kai. Embarrassed at her ogling, she peels her gaze away from him. But the next words out of his mouth doesn't calm her thumping heart at all. He declares pink as his favorite color and flashes her a kind smile as he thanks her. Safe to say, Elena is down so bad. Retreating back to the mansion, Elena has one request. She wants them to start sleeping in the same bed again, and surprisingly, Kai agrees almost instantly. Come to think of it, he's been really diligent with giving Elena everything she asks for. Well, everything except a baby. Snuggled in bed, Elena's eyes are once again glued to her husband. With a hand to his forehead, she can't help but wonder what caused his fever a few days ago. Proudly, she recounts how well she took care of him that day, and she'd do it all over again for him, really. Her enthusiasm and thoughtfulness makes Kai chuckle, and quite frankly, he looks forward to being cared for by Elena. This man would welcome a fever with open arms just to make that happen. Elsewhere, Sir Thomas comes to the aid of an injured woman in the dead of night. But when he bends down to help her, she pulls out a dagger and thrusts it right at him. His knightly instincts save him just in time. He disarms the woman and captures the mastermind behind the scheme, a prisoner extracting revenge on Thomas for turning him in. Knowing Thomas lets his guard down around women, the man counted on that weakness. And it's true. Thomas was raised to believe women must always be protected because of their frail and weak nature. That never changed, until he met Elena, a woman so fierce and feisty that he began to question his mother's teachings. Well, thank God for that, because it ended up saving his life. That morning, Elena wakes up with the best of the best moods. In her dream, she tortured Kai's family, making sure they'd perish for everything that they did to him. I knew Elena was crazy, but dare I say that this is an acceptable kind of crazy? Like, yes girl, avenge your man. Just then, Albert comes to greet her, informing her all about Thomas's change of heart. And it seems that it isn't just Thomas, because Henri and Marie greet Elena warmly, the same maids who have been avoiding her for a long time. Turns out they feel grateful that Elena exposed Incan's schemes. Had she not done that, they could have been his next victims. Later, Elena joins Kai for lunch, where he informs her that Incan is officially confined to the county until the end of his days. Unfortunately, there's no luck with deconstructing the formula of Incan's drug. Despite being subjected to harsh interrogation, Incan insists on keeping a tight lip. A medicine that impregnates virgin women? Ugh, I bet he's using questionable ingredients in that thing. Seeing the worried look on Elena's face, Kai reassures her that they'll continue investigating the mysterious substance Incan used. Elena is about to respond, but food comes flying in her direction when the maid trips all of a sudden. With one flick of his hand, Kai swats it away mid-air, saving Elena. He isn't spared, though, because his own clothes are stained. As he cleans his clothes, he cuffs his sleeves, revealing toned arms and beautiful skin. And just like that, Elena might as well just drool. What can I say? She's a simp for her husband. Trying to distract herself from his arms, she wonders if Kai could spare a day for her. She braces herself for rejection, but it never comes. Instead, Kai gives her a fond look, expressing he'll always make time for her. This man is a whole green forest. As lunch ends, the maid, Lena, personally apologizes to Elena for the mishaps. But what she doesn't expect is for Elena to thank and praise her. If it hadn't been for the maid, her eyes would never have been blessed with such a view. Lena is flabbergasted, and she scurries away to spread the word to her fellow maids. Lady Elena isn't the cruel duchess they think she is. Later that day, Elena eagerly pens a letter to Rosalind, her courtship teacher, recounting all the progress she's made so far. Feeling bold, she even dares to move on to stage 1 of intimacy. Of course, she'll have to come up with a plan first, so it's off to the library with her. By morning, Albert finds her completely dozed off, along with draft plans for a festival date. Apparently, Elena spent the night planning her first date with Kai, which explains the scattered drafts littering the floor. From Albert's expert opinion, the festival plan is perfect. You see, Kai had never been to the festival before because his parents had kept him away from the public eye. Hearing this, Elena is even more motivated to make it happen. Her first order of business? Arranging teleportation plans with a sorcerer. She'll be damned if they waste 2 days traveling to the festival. The following morning, Sidrion himself, the Lord of the Black Tower, arrives at the mansion. The Black Tower is an independent group of sorcerers, infamous for refusing to submit to the king's authority. It's Elena's first time meeting Sidrion, yet the two immediately fall into playful banter. Despite Sidrion's close friendship with Kai, Elena stubbornly calls him Lord of the Black Tower, much to his irritation. Still, Sidrion hears her out, and to Elena's surprise, he refuses any payment. Helping Kai, he says, is compensation enough. Over dinner, Kai tells Elena all about his friendship with Sidrion. The way he speaks so fondly, maybe Sidrion isn't so bad at all. Later that night, Elena wanders through the mansion and finds Max still training. She recalls how Max wanted to be at least half as good as Kai in swordsmanship, so she decides to help him out. Her idea of doing that? Barking out harsh encouragement. To her, Max shouldn't even dream of being half as good. He should start lower, aiming to be as good as Kai's shoe. Oddly enough, Max takes her words to heart. I'm convinced these two share one brain cell. Pleased at having helped reignite Max's motivation, Elena heads back inside. But just as she's about to, she encounters some knights hauling in a drunk Colin. Truthfully, this is the last thing that they want to be doing. After all, they all know what Colin is like when drunk. He just can't shut up about his expeditions with Duke Kaihan Mayhart. Elena turns her neck so fast it could have snapped. Swiftly, she darts to the knights, relieving them of Colin's company. It just so happens that she's just as eager to hear about Kai's expeditions as much as Colin loves talking about them. She wasn't kidding. The two literally ended up chatting until dawn. Days later, the day of Elena and Kai's date finally arrives. Since this is their first date, she takes her time getting ready, making sure she looks stunning. Her whole look is so enchanting that even Abby thinks she looks like an angel. And speaking of good looks, Kai looks dashing himself. And he's even wearing the cufflinks she gifted him. Heading out, Elena wonders what Kai thinks about her outfit. She's beautiful, he says, but something about it makes Elena double take. After a full interrogation and a hearty back and forth, he finally manages to reassure Elena. Yup, she's a woman all right. They meet with Sidrian, and Elena's thoughts immediately wander to Kai's stories about their friendship. Who would have thought that Sidrian used to be a priest? Boy, are we glad he isn't one anymore. At least people can marry the guy, you know? As promised, Sidrian teleports the two to the Masquerade Festival. There, excitement grapples Elena. They're officially on their first dates. The town itself is bustling with people. As they navigate their way around the festival, it's Kai who makes the first move, extending his hand out for Elena to hold. Hand in hand, Elena couldn't be any happier. This may be the first time Kai has been to a festival, but Elena is determined to make sure that it won't be the last. A radiant smile blooms across her face as she tells him her goal: to make more first-time memories with Kai. Kai softens his gaze, touched by her thoughtfulness. Although he doesn't say anything, his heart races uncontrollably. From flying lanterns to fluffy cotton candy, almost everything attracts them. One particular game, though, catches Elena's eye: a log-cutting game. Immediately, she asks that they play, knowing full well that Kai would dominate all those logs in one go. But the Game Master knows a sword master when he sees one. Sneaky as he is, he hands Kai a fake sword, hoping to cheat him off his money. However, before Kai can even play, tragedy breaks out. A lion escapes and begins terrorizing the people. And directly in its line of sight is, you guessed it, the Game Master. I bet he regrets giving Kai that fake sword now. Fake sword in hand, Kai charges, and well, I guess his skills really precede him because he still manages to slay the beast. Triumphant, Kai returns to Elena, his expression unreadable. She saw the beast, so why didn't she run? Elena explains simply, it's just that her faith in him greatly outmatched her fear of the beast. This moves Kai, but before he can react, commotion stirs again. Jeez, let the man breathe! Thankfully, it's not another lion this time. Just a woman being a Karen. The painter tries to reason with her, but she's about to swing her hand right at him. Luckily, her partner catches her hand midair, offering her words of comfort before the crowd. Just looking at them disgusts Elena. She isn't buying the happy relationship performance at all. From the corner of his eye, the man spots Elena, and unexpectedly he recognizes her. He greets her loudly, calling her by name before he sets off. But hearing this, the crowd stirs, immediately catching on that she's the Duchess. Whispers begin to erupt. The man she's with is probably the famous Cursed Duke. Ugh, who is that man and why is he ruining their date? Elena drags Kai away from the crowd. So much for their first date. Feeling defeated, she suggests they go home, but Kai reassures her that he's fine. He redirects her gaze to a nearby play and leads her there. Once the play begins, the audience would be too preoccupied to even recognize them. Well, it's not like Elena was planning to argue anyway. The play, however, leaves her mortified. Without exception, she demands to see the playwright. That night, she and Kai stay at Baron Anam's estate, the lord of the locale. He's happy to help Elena locate the playwright, informing her that they'll probably be able to meet by morning. He shows them to the guest room where Kai expresses concern for Elena. She smiles sheepishly. She did look quite shaken after the play, and why wouldn't she be? The play itself was a reenactment of the future she once saw. She wonders if the playwright is the old woman. If not, then could someone else know about the future? Turning back into her surroundings, Elena expresses disappointment to herself. Honestly, she thought she could have made their first date way better than that. As if the world understood her feelings, she spots 2 bottles of wine in their room. Drinking her sorrows away? This woman is a mood. She pours a glass for herself and Kai, but one sip in and he stiffens. Immediately, he hurries to air out the room, confusing Elena. But he tells her that she'll understand soon enough. As soon as he says that, she begins feeling hot all over. It then clicks. The wine was laced. It's not poison, but rather a substance for steamy nights, if you know what I mean. Kai gathers her in his arms and carries her to the bed. Just as she thought, he confirms that they've been drugged with an aphrodisiac. Kai himself was drugged with the same substance a few years back, so of course he recognized it right away. Fortunately, drugs don't affect him much. But the same can't be said for Elena, who's already feeling the drug's effects. Kai holding and carrying her did nothing to calm her nerves. If anything, it made her feel even more aroused. Trying to make her feel better, Kai reassures her that its effects will pass in about 12 hours. I don't think our girl can hold out for that long. She scoots away from Kai, hoping to keep herself from pouncing on him. But not even 5 minutes later and she's already begging him to help her. At this point, she is feeling so hot that she wants to rip her clothes off. Kai instantly leaps into action. And no, it's not the steamy action we've been waiting for. He starts ripping the curtains off, and just in time too, because Elena begins peeling her nightgown off. Before she knows it, she's wrapped like a burrito. Calming down, she lets her thoughts run loose. She asks Kai if he's ever thought about the world ending. Out loud, she expresses how she never wants Kai to die. After all, she needs him. But the question is, does he need her? She falls asleep before he can even respond, but truthfully, Kai himself doesn't even know the answer. Ouch, that's just sad. The following morning, the Baron apologizes to Elena and Kai. To make up for it, he bears good news. The playwright, Will, has arrived. Elena doesn't beat around the bush. Point blank, she asks if Will has seen the future and met the old woman. Will knows nothing about an old woman, but she confesses about knowing the future. She's someone plagued with prophetic dreams, you see. As the two chat, Elena realizes that the future Will foresaw was ahead of the events she saw. Unlike Elena, who has nobody to tell, Will has someone she can confide in about the horrifying future, and that makes Elena slightly envious. Desperate, she asks Will for a favor, that they keep in touch and exchange letters. Will smiles. Sure, they can write to each other until the monster invasion comes. It's a fun inside joke at first, that is, until Elena reveals that it's set to happen in 19 to 20 years. After the meeting, Will catches her partner up on everything. Will's prophetic dreams usually only peer 3 years into the future, so this feels impossible. Though it seems like an anomaly, Will trusts Elena. She knows too much about the future for it to be a coincidence. Heck, she even knows all about the monsters, calling them Elgers. The world ending in 19 years instead of 3 isn't a relief to Will's partner. The end of the world coming so soon was the only reason Will agreed to marry him after all. Well, luckily for him, Will has no intention of breaking off their engagement. In the county of Marzahn, Incan seethes at his sister Rebecca for sentencing him to lifelong confinement, convinced the document containing his sentence isn't even signed by their father. Enraged, he orders his servant to sneak into Rebecca's room, only to be refused. Incan laughs, clearly amused. The servant must be forgetting he holds all the cards. Surely he wouldn't want his wife to know the truth, right? That her husband, the servant, is an infertile man who stole Incan's drug to baby trap her into becoming his wife. That is hella messed up. Days later, Elena tries to bond with Kai through painting, the one hobby she excels at. She paints him from life, capturing his features, but adds her own twist, giving him her pink eyes. She proudly shows him the finished piece, oblivious to the distant expression on his face. Girl, are you dense? If my wife painted me without my dark markings, I'd be sad too. Later that day, a servant alerts Elena to an issue. The knights are brawling. To be exact, it's Thomas, Max, and Colin fighting each other over who gets to become Elena's escort knight. They all have their fair share of life-changing moments with Elena, which explains why all of them wanted the job. Ultimately, the choice is still up to Elena, and she chooses, drumroll please, Sir Thomas. Like a good dog, Thomas diligently follows Elena around as they look for blue paint that matches Kai's eyes. They're about to take a break when Thomas intervenes in a children's squabble, saving a girl named Anna from bullies. Seeing Elena in all her ethereal beauty, the children can only assume she's an angel, and she doesn't bother to correct them. With the bullies taken care of, Elena tries her best to comfort Anna, offering her a tart as a treat. Anna happily munches the tart, but she can only wish for a child named Hans to be there with her. And like on cue, Hans comes running into view. The sight of both children makes Elena pause. Anna and Hans. These are the same people who sacrificed their lives to save her in the future. Feeling all emotional, she promises to change their fates. Back at the mansion, Albert informs Elena that Anna and Hans already receive assistance from House Mayhart. After all, their mothers study herbology classes funded by the state and are ensured jobs at the soon-to-open herb distribution centers. As Elena teaches Kai how to paint, she wonders if Anna and Hans save her out of gratitude for Kai's support. Lost in thought, she doesn't realize Kai's gaze on her, and even more absent-minded, she accidentally pats his head. This girl is definitely one of the funniest female leads out there. She confesses that she intended to do it secretly, but to her surprise, Kai tells her that there's no reason to do it secretly. Days later, at Marsden County, Rebecca is informed about Inken's escape. She's tipped off that he's headed to Mayhart County, so that's exactly where she's going. And while she's at it, she might as well just buy black clothes in advance. Rebecca already planning Inken's funeral is such queen behavior. But something tells me she's not a friend of the Mayharts either. At the Mayhart mansion, Colin sheepishly offers to accompany Elena on her outing for the day, something that Elena has no problem with. As she's getting ready, Abby styles her with one of Sidrian's handmade magical earrings, a pair that changes color to match her outfits. Elena meets Anna in town, but before they can enjoy themselves, they're alerted to monsters appearing in the area, which prompts Elena to deploy Colin instantly. However, she finds the timing all too strange. Monsters appearing just when she's in town? Something's fishy. She chooses to trust her gut. Without thinking twice, she asks Anna a favor, to bring Elena's earring, run to the Mayhart mansion, and give it to the Duke. Just as Anna takes off, a man sneaks up from behind Elena. It's no other than Inken Marsden. Without knights by her side and her maid's life on the line, Elena is left with no choice but to go with him. As she's being abducted, Elena silently puts her faith in Anna and Kai. The least she can do is buy them time, so she pulls out the vomit card. Seeing a pub nearby, she then tells Inken to buy her a beer. It's the only way she'll stop puking. Reluctant, he agrees, slipping a cloak over her. But as he does so, Elena can only notice his charred fingers. Just what on earth has he been doing? Upon entering the tavern, Elena quickly glances outside to see that Inken's men are still positioned there. And sure enough, he is watching them intently, making it difficult for her to escape. Realizing this, Elena has no choice but to get the attention of the men inside the tavern by announcing to everyone that a reward of 1,000 gold coins will be given to whoever can capture Inka. Quick thinking, Elena! Hearing this, all the men quickly agree since it is a hefty price after all. They all then charge towards Inka, but to Elena's disappointment, all are easily taken down by Inka. Seeing this, Elena quickly escapes, but is stopped by Inka, who harshly grabs her and pins her to the ground. Elena struggles to escape Inka, but realizes she is no match for his strength. She helplessly calls for Kai. When Elena slowly starts to be unconscious due to Inka's choke, she then sees Inka being stabbed by Kai. Seeing Kai, Elena knows that she is already safe, and then she collapses. In her dream, Elena sees the old lady again, who begins to tell her that Elena has already experienced her first awakening. Seeing this, Elena starts asking questions, but the old lady tells her that she can't intervene since it might be dangerous. Thus, the old lady only reminds her that she is the only hope of stopping humanity's extinction, and hopes that Elena succeeds so that the old lady's child's death will not be in vain. The old lady seems to act like a system, but her child? I wonder who it is. And she seems to have some powers within her too? Gosh, all these questions! Back at the mansion, while Kai watches a sleeping Elena, he asks the maid if Elena is safe from harm, and the maid assures him that, aside from the scratches on her neck, she is alright. Afterwards, while Kai is alone with a sleeping Elena, he slowly reaches for her hand and brings it to his face. Kai starts to remember the past, where, even at a young age, he already experienced his parents' hatred and disgust towards him because of his inborn scar. But even so, as an innocent child, he still loves his parents. Kai begins to see how unfairly his parents treat him after his brother Martin is born. Since he always witnessed how his parents, especially his mother, favored Martin, it became worse when someone found a book about his scars, claiming it was a demon curse. Knowing this, his mother starts to harm him, but always fails since no scar stays on Kai's face. Gosh, how can these parents be so horrible? By the age of 9, his parents didn't even want him to have any sword training so that he wouldn't overshadow Martin, but Kai didn't listen and secretly trained. As time passed, a tragedy happened to Kai's family where everyone died in an accident during their trip, and only he was alive since he was left in the house. Because of this, people started to speculate that he might be cursed, but he didn't care what others said anymore. Years pass, and Kai then meets Elena through an arranged marriage he thought was only on paper. But now he values Elena more than that. Living together, Kai learns more about Elena, but he struggles to understand her. She punishes anyone who speaks behind his back, yet she touches his face without hesitation. Kai is even more shocked when Elena tells him that she wants to sleep with him and bear his child. But the weirdest thing is that because he sees how sincere Elena is towards him, he also uses her sincerity as an excuse to show his own sincerity. Kai starts to remember how strongly Elena rejects the idea of their divorce, and how he stays speechless when she does something frustrating. How does he start to open up and talk to her about his past and scars? Even the staff in the castle's like her since she only laughs when they make small mistakes. Realizing all these things, Kai already knows that Elena is a good person and the castle staff needs her not only as a duchess, but also as a wife. Kai also remembers him having a second thought about whether he is worthy of Elena, since in the past, his father beat him after he asked for a pet bird, saying he didn't deserve it. He got beaten just for wanting a bird. His parents are ruthless. Kai also admits he panics when he learns that Elena was kidnapped by Inca, and everything he does afterward is a blur. All he wants is to save Elena. Because of this, Kai knows one thing, and that is he can't live without Elena. Meanwhile, upon waking up, Elena sees Kai's stressed face and worriedly asks how he is. But Kai directly asks Elena not to get hurt and always stay by his side. Finally, you don't have to punish yourself for wanting to be with her, Duke! The following morning, the doctor checks up on Elena. Despite Elena's insistence that she's already feeling well, the doctor gently but firmly encourages her to drink the herbal medicine. Elena hesitates, feeling a mix of frustration and resignation, but she follows the advice, unable to entirely hide her reluctance. Afterwards, Kai arrives with some peaches. He then starts to peel the peaches for Elena to eat and enjoy. While enjoying their time together, Elena can't help but stare at Kai skillfully peeling the peaches, and later on asks if he will also peel some fruit tomorrow, to which Kai innocently nods, making Elena excited, and even thinks that she'll drink the medicine even if it tastes bad. Ugh, this couple is so cute together! The following day, Elena is shocked to hear from Ben that Inca's body disappeared without a trace, and a witness narrates that his body suddenly melted before his eyes. Hearing this, Elena begins to think that Inca might be using black magic since during their last meeting, she noticed a foul smell from Inca, and also thinks that it's impossible for Inca's body to quickly recover after his upper body was completely destroyed. Afterwards, Elena remembers a light appearing from her hand and hitting Inca, sending him flying. Because of this, she concludes that it was not an illusion. She thinks it could be a power that is in conflict with Inca. However, after the incident, she is unable to summon the light in her hand again. Lost in her thoughts, a maid approaches her and asks if she is free to have dinner with Kai tonight. She excitedly agrees, and Elena forgets about the incident. Meanwhile, Rebecca receives a letter informing her that Inca's body is already taken care of. After reading it, she then burns it while commenting how much of a nuisance Inca was. But luckily, her man successfully finishes the job. If he is not able to kill Inca himself and is killed by others, he must use what she gave him to get rid of Inca's body. Later, while Rebecca is alone, she realizes that, for all these years, it has been easy to manipulate people because she can brainwash them. But now it is difficult after Duchess Elena's arrival. Hence, why Rebecca instructed one of her maids to hide her black dress since Kai had not died because of the thief, so there are no tears to be shed. While she was thinking, a maid hurriedly approached her and said that Rebecca's father wants to meet her and looks furious. Hearing this, Rebecca only nods and calmly proceeds to her father's office. Upon her arrival, her father instantly rants and blames Rebecca for her failed plan, and Kai must think that their family is one of the people who orchestrated the kidnapping of Elena, putting their family in a difficult position. Annoyed by her father, Rebecca tries to assure him that everything will be fine and that she will fix it, but he is even more furious at her calm demeanor, so she uses her power to make him follow her. Meanwhile, Elena is wondering why her family has not yet replied to her letter, given the distance between their homes, but then brushes it off and starts looking at her checklist of steps to a successful relationship. Ugh, I really love Elena's innocence and straightforwardness. While resting, Elena can't help but remember Kai's soft gesture and smile. But then she suddenly remembers Kai talking about divorcing her one day for her sake, which she promised not to agree to if it ever happened. Later, Elena announces to her maid that she will be taking a walk and assures her that she will only walk inside the castle, which makes the maid relieved. While walking in the garden, Elena sees Max and Thomas running towards her and announcing that they will be escorting her. Elena agrees to them and also can't help but notice Colin's absence. But Max and Thomas try to explain that Colin is in training. Thus, Elena accepts this, but is somewhat not convinced by their excuse. As Elena walks around, she finally sees Mina, who also has been absent for a couple of days due to the injury she got during the incident. Elena asks how Mina is, and the maid happily assures her that she's feeling better, but she can't say that Colin is well because of what happened to his face. Learning this, Elena talks to Max and Thomas, who later crack and tell her that Colin feels guilty and disappointed with what happened to Elena. Later on, while Kai is peeling fruits for her, Elena shares with him that she wants to assure Colin that it's not his fault. But Kai advises her that it's better to give Colin a light punishment to make him feel better, which Elena agrees to. Kai then hands Elena the fruit shaped like a bunny, making Elena comment about being the bunny as his favorite animal, to which Kai only stares and smiles at her. Yep, you are the rabbit, thus you're his favorite. The following day, Elena meets up with Colin. Colin, feeling guilty and embarrassed, only bows his head. Elena remembers Kai's advice and decides to act on it. She firmly tells Colin that he failed to notice the danger approaching her and did not protect her when she needed it. Listening to this, Colin feels even more guilty and disappointed with himself. He starts to apologize to Elena. Elena, however, stops him and informs him that his punishment is to be her bodyguard for 6 months without pay. Colin tries to protest, insisting he doesn't deserve such a light punishment. Elena interrupts him, making it clear that this is what she wants. Hearing this, Colin tearfully accepts and promises to do his best. Elena smiles because, true enough, Kai's suggestion is effective in regaining Colin's self-esteem. Meanwhile, Max and Thomas start protesting outside after learning of Colin's punishment. To them, it's not a punishment but a reward. They also want to be assigned as Elena's bodyguards. This leaves her with no choice but to accept the two. These guards are so cute towards Elena! Afterwards, Ben informs Elena about the report he gathered about Inka's death. He finds that Inka was already using black magic, and the books in their house can prove so. Ben also learns that Inka was violent towards Rebecca, his sister, and other people. This made it hard for them to control Inka. The report came from the dead butler of the Marsons household. Ben adds that Count Marson denies their family has anything to do with Inka's actions and quickly cuts Inka off from their family tree. Next, Ben provides an update on herb distribution and expects they will be able to start the trial. He also adds that Anna's mother is already in a managerial position. No one tries to oppose, which might be because they know how Anna helped Elena during the incident. Next, Elena looks at Sidrian weirdly, who looks so lifeless and haggard, but Sidrian tells her that he is fine and she doesn't have anything to worry about. Elena proceeds by thanking Sidrian for the earring with a tracking spell he gifted her, since it helps them find her. Hearing this, Sidrian replies that it's no big deal and hands Elena a box of jewelry that are magical artifacts. Seeing this, Elena can't help but ask Sidrian if he's only doing this because he likes Kai, because no one would do such meticulous work for so long with no rest, and also because Sidrian is known to have a nasty personality. Taken aback, Sidrian didn't have a choice but to assure Elena that he was doing it because of Kai, and because, in the past, Kai had helped him escape from the priesthood. Elena becomes serious and asks Sidrian if a person using black magic has a nasty stench, and if there is other magic that can repel black magic. Sidrian replies that maybe that nasty stench comes from a decomposing body that the black magic user needs to keep corpses around them. During dinner time, Elena happily eats while telling Kai about her day and how she met with Sidrian, who gave her magical jewelry. Kai notices how happy Elena is and asks her seriously if she's happy to be with Sidrian. Someone is a little jelly. Elena is then shocked when Kai's plate suddenly cracks. He casually blames the plates. How shameless! You are clearly jealous, Duke! The following morning, Elena wakes to find many gifts in her room, and she looks at the maids, who tell her they are all from Kai. Well, Kai, are you trying to one-up someone we know? Afterwards, the doctor arrives to check on Elena again, and after a thorough check, he approved that Elena could already walk outside and return to sleep in the couple's bedroom, making Elena excited since she could do the activities she wanted without restriction. Later that night, while Elena and Kai are in bed, She starts to share how Anna's life became better and is already treated right by other kids with the help of Ben, and she cutely asks Kai if he can join her on a boat trip together soon, when he is not busy, which he quickly agrees to. After Elena seems to be unable to sleep, she asks Kai to join her for a walk outside the garden, which he happily agrees to. In the garden, the couple is enjoying the silence together. Then Elena suddenly trips, so Kai extends his hand to guide Elena since it is also dark outside. Elena is touched by Kai's gesture and agrees. To find a love that is sincere and real. Meanwhile, a man and woman are traveling to visit Elena. Who could this person be? While Elena and Kai are walking hand in hand, she feels her heart beating irregularly, but she tries her best to calm it, so they decide to go back to the bedroom. Back in the bedroom, Elena still finds it hard to sleep, so she asks Kai to tell her stories, which he readily agrees to. As time passes, while she listens, she drifts off to sleep. Seeing this, Kai tucks her into bed and stares at her lovingly while promising that he will do everything it takes to protect and keep her safe. Oh gosh, where can we find a man like Kai? The following morning, Kai instructs Ben not to wake Elena and to let her sleep, which Ben obeys. Hence, as soon as Elena wakes up, she feels instantly recharged after sleeping in. Later on, while she's taking a walk, Ben approaches Elena and tells her that she has visitors waiting outside. Elena then turns and heads outside to see who the visitors are. Upon arriving outside, Elena is shocked to see the newcomers. The woman, Mary, quickly hugs her, clearly happy to see her. But the man haughtily tells her that they came to take her home and to quickly ride the carriage. After all the confusion, Elena invites her brother Edward for a snack and asks him why he's eager to take her home. Edward then explains that, after receiving her letter and learning that Elena had been hurt and kidnapped, he and their father decided it was best for Elena to return home. Hearing this, Elena quickly declines and assures Edward that she is safe and will not leave Kai. Edward, however, disagrees and explains that she is not safe in the duchy. Elena counters by saying she was kidnapped at the capital, implying it is safer here, and adds that the kidnapper is also in the capital. Elena quickly instructs the maid to bring all her jewelry, along with a magical artifact that will keep her safe, just to prove to Edward that she is well protected by her husband. But Edward does not believe it is all Kai's doing. Dude, Kai is head over heels in love with Elena and is even willing to shield her from anything. Knowing this, Elena adds that she also has 3 personal bodyguards who are willing to risk their lives. And on cue, Max, Colin, and Thomas show themselves to Edward. Elena even adds that the 3 are very skillful in fighting and protecting, thus making her safer here. Elena adds that she's grateful to Edward and her father for their concern, but they don't need to overreact. But Edward becomes serious and says they should never have agreed to let Elena marry someone as dangerous as Kai. He even mentions the Duke's so-called curse. An angry Elena is about to defend Kai, but is stopped when Kai arrives and welcomes Edward, telling him to rest. Edward, in all his annoying self, tries to decline but has no choice but to accept in the end. Later that night, while preparing for bed, Elena questions why he suddenly stepped in just as she was about to turn Edward bald for his words. Kai tells her that he doesn't want her to argue with her family for him. However, Elena declares that she only wants to serve justice. Her words cause a fond smile on Kai's face. He just keeps falling in love with her. Just admit it! Afterwards, Elena apologizes to Kai for Edward's rude and ugly comments about him, but Kai only tells her that he doesn't mind it at all and was only concerned about what Elena would think about him. Because of this, Elena realizes that Kai is used to the snide and ugly comments about him, but she promises that she will not let such a thing happen in the future. The next morning, while Elena and Edward are having tea, Edward again asks her to return home and not think about the contract. However, she tells him it is not about the contract and that she's already forgotten about it because she truly wants to stay by Kai's side. Aw, your sister's in love, Edward. Leave her be. Edward doesn't back down and even tells Elena that Miel is already willing to take her place. And upon hearing this, Elena becomes suspicious since Miel is not the self-sacrificing type. But Edward tells her that Miel might have changed after knowing that Elena got into an accident. Still, despite Edward's words, she refuses to go home. A few days pass. While Elena is enjoying her time outside, she notices that Edward is still around, but she doesn't mind his presence and instead asks Mary how she is. Mary then excitedly talks about what happened while Elena was gone and tells Elena that she misses her lady Elena so much. But Elena quickly corrects her, reminding her that she is now a duchess, to which Mary quickly nods and apologizes. Afterwards, Edward asks Elena to go with him for a walk. He then confronts her by saying that he knows that she lied when she declared that the reason she wanted to marry the Duke back then was that she loved him. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you